Hey everyone, welcome to Black Spring with Autumn, and I am happy to bring you more news and more updates as we head into this seemingly powder keg of a 2020 election season. And first, I'd like to start out with a member of the Senate. Now, this particular member of the Senate, you all know him as Sen.Rand Paul. Now, the question here, or the point of contention here, is that Senator Rand Paul has made a few statements regarding President Trump and his actions regarding regarding oversight, if you will. So with that said, I would like to start with a couple of instances in which you might be familiar, maybe you have not. But we can definitely start with a tweet. Here it says from Senator Rand Paul, from Senator Rand Paul's Twitter account, "I am pleased that President Trump has pulled back and taken the preferred path of no further military action. I believe any further decision on military action require a full debate and congressional authority." Now later, that same day, Senator Rand Paul follows up again with another tweet. "I spoke with President real Donald Trump today. The president shares my thoughts and that the last thing we need is another ground war. He doesn't want endless wars. I continue to hope for de-escalation and diplomacy." So, with that said, for those of you, Senator Rand Paul seems to have, he has a history and a bit of his own constitutional legacy and principle that I think that he imparts or that he wants to uphold in these situations. And he's spoken out before when it comes to his constitutional principles and the way he votes. And to that end, I would like to bring you something else. So if you'll bear with me just a second, I'd like to bring you a bit of a clip with Senator Rand Paul. So here we'll go ahead and roll the clip.
None of our troops were killed in the attack last night, and my hope is that there still will be some room or some movement towards diplomacy. I, for one, have been working and trying to get both sides to talk for the last 6 months to a year. I think it's more difficult now, in general, that is an act of war and that Congress should be involved. The Constitution never envisioned giving that power to one individual person. It's too much power for one person to have, even somebody I support like the president. But I think we should really obey the Constitution. That means we would stay out of a lot of war unless there was a momentum and a declaration of war coming from Congress.
Yeah, Senator Paul, you've been looking closely at Senator Kane's resolution of war powers. Fill us in on that.
Well, I'm going to hear the classified intelligence over what the proposed attacks were that were coming towards us. I'm going to listen to that very carefully, look at the information I'm given, and then there will be a discussion. Now, part of the discussion really is not really relevant to whether or not the attacks were imminent or relative to what the purpose of the killing of Soleimani is. The question is when you go to war, should you have a declaration of war? And the question is this an isolated instance or is it going to ratchet up? Hopefully it quiets down, and this is more an intellectual exercise in debating over who has the power, Congress or the president. But these separation of power issues are not new and have been going on really since Truman took us to war in Korea without a declaration. So these are important constitutional battles that we have to have, and not really personal. And I don't think the president takes it personally either. I spoke to the president earlier today, and I think the president's hope is the same as my hope, that we don't have another major land war in the Middle East. And I think he continues to believe, as he said many, many times, that the Iraq war was a mistake. And in many ways, the Iraq war still continues to haunt us as we lead to these altercations with the Iraq government now siding with the Iranian government. And none of that happened, or all of that has happened, basically as a result of the Iraq war, which was a mistake.
Now, you have said for many years that you don't want any more endless wars. When you see something like this, if there were some belligerence, let's say, from Iran toward the United States, would you support military action then? And if so, what kind of action?
See, that's sort of the problem. I believe that President Trump doesn't want that. He doesn't want endless wars, and he doesn't want a major war with Iran. The problem is does one provocation lead to a greater provocation, lead to something that makes it inevitable, where everybody says we must do something? Fortunately, the attacks last night killed no one, but what if the attacks had killed 200 Marines? Today we'd be at war with Iran. And so things get out of my control, and voices for peace and voices for diplomacy get drowned out once Americans are killed. And so the real goal here is to have diplomacy, some kind of mediation, some kind of engagement, give the Iranians an opportunity to have discussions as opposed to only escalation. Because you're right, there becomes a point at which they rally behind their flag, but there's also a point at which Americans rally behind our flag if Americans are killed. So right now we're still in a lucky place in that no Americans were killed in the most recent escalation, and hopefully we stay there, and hopefully there is an off-ramp that the Iranians will choose and that our side will choose. I'm just thankful that none of our troops were killed in the...
Okay, so there you have it. You have Senator Rand Paul giving his concerns on diplomacy, his knowledge of previous conflicts in the Middle East and what that has meant for the American troops, the American people, and the faith that he has. He does extend some level of confidence in the president and what would happen next, but he's also saying that he's going to review or debrief the content or the threats that were pending at the time. So here again, we have a Republican that does seem to stand up for his own constitutional principles. However, I'd like to speak to that specific point. This is Senator Rand Paul, and on occasion I've spoken about the Freedom Index or the Constitutional Index, and that's what I would actually like to bring you to next. Now, in this particular case, if you'll take a look with me, you will see that Senator Rand Paul is a senator from Kentucky, and in the Freedom Index, you can find that from our trusted source, thenewamerican.com, which is a publication parented by the jbs.org. They are an excellent source for defending American sovereignties and American liberties, less government, and protecting sovereignty, as well as their belief in constitutional principles. But here you can see that the senator has a cumulative Freedom Index score of 94%. Now you can do the breakdown. They give you a breakdown of the actual score. They also do it by years. So as a member of the 116th Congress, Senator Rand Paul, from 2019 to the 2020 year, looks like he had a pretty high record. So you can start to do the breakdown there. Of course, it provides contact information. But then here you can also see, this is an opportunity for me to actually show you what you can see. You can actually see how the Congress members are actually voting on these measures. Are they voting for less government? Are they avoiding extended foreign entanglements? Are they abiding with, are they being are they upholding constitutional principles and values when they're voting? Are they being fiscally responsible? So here you can see an example on the amendment, the Second Amendment, the 942 to HR 4378. You can see the way he's voted here. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can do this on your own. But these are definitely amendments, motions, HR, budget deals. It shows you votes all the way up until, looks like this is the most current one. It was going to be the September 26, 2019 vote. And this is here, it's titled on the side. You can see where it says the good vote. And as you continue to scroll, you will see even more votes. Now there's particular votes that I'm looking for, like the HR 5 and the HR 9s. These are the things that you want to see. You want to be able to evaluate your candidates for, you want to be able to evaluate your candidates for the general elections based on these types of criteria. If they are voting, if they have a decent constitutional record. I've seen Democrats as well as Republicans that have voter records that are constitutional voting records in the 20s. Of course, on the Democrat side, I've seen it in the teens. So it's very insightful. It's very informative to know how these people are upholding the Constitution and how they are protecting us as Americans. Are they trampling our rights? Are they spending our money irresponsibly? What are they doing? So there's a lot here. Like I said, there's a lot of information. You know, to me, one of the biggest litmus tests is going to be the Second Amendment issues, as well as this whole climate crisis, climate hoax, climate faith, anything with climate in front of it, any new deals, any of these things are a huge litmus test. So you can do that for yourself. But I will say, anytime that I hear, which I don't think this was opposition, I think that Senator Rand Paul I think he puts the constitutional principle ahead of whatever the measures are. But I do think that what needs to be, what I think is not fair for the president to keep having to defend the idea that he was actually, he wasn't starting an actual war. But he made it clear, and I do believe the American people can be proud and can be confident that the president did not want another Benghazi. However, I think the Democrats, the liberals, they want another Benghazi. So, they expected, some type of appeasement, some type of apology, some type of cowering down, and they were going to be met with strength, and they were going to be met with force. The president has been very adamant about that, very firm on that, and I do believe going forward he will continue to be very adamant about American interest, saving lives, the whole 9 bits. So once again, as I close out this segment of Black Spring with Autumn, you can feel free to take a look at the newamerican.com. Here you can find any senator or any House member that you're interested in seeing how they've been voting, what issues are important to you. You can find that on the newamerican.com. And I do appreciate your time, and please let me know what your concerns are. What is your take on Senator Rand Paul's position of, insisting or upholding some level of, holding the president to some level of oversight? I'm not saying that I do think that he's being cautious, or maybe it's a responsibility. He tends to be constitutionally responsible and abides by principles regularly. So I don't say that I have a total problem, but I do have a pretty high radar for those who are not consistently serving American interest, and that those that are potentially rhinos. And we definitely don't need any of those going into this 2020. We need strong American representatives of our constitutional values and will uphold American sovereignty. So until next time, have a great evening, and I'll see you next time on Black Spring with Autumn.